Well, it seems that Rachel Reeves is now doing a bit of a belly dance and Keir Starmer U-turn herself and might have just thought that, raising a lot of people's taxes might not just be a good idea and will actually pee a load of people off, because let's face it, it certainly will do. But Rachel Reeves has apparently been thinking about ditching the plan to hike income tax. And whilst, yes, that is very welcome, it has left everyone kind of scratching their heads. And even the financial markets are on edge a bit because now they don't know what she's doing. I mean, first, it seems she was raising taxes by giving everyone a warning, remember? A few weeks ago. Well, it actually wasn't a warning, was it? It was, if anything, more of a hint or a clue of what she might do. And I guess she might have been listening to a few people, because even one of Labour's own MPs is warning about this, but saying that breaking manifesto promises could spell disaster at the polls. Well, of course, they've had quite a few disasters at the polls already, haven't they? So what has happened then? Well, it turns out the Office for Budget Responsibility told the Treasury that only £20 billion is needed to balance the books, not the £30 billion they thought. But instead of a sigh of relief, borrowing costs have unfortunately shot up, and the pound then took a nosedive as city people were worried that the Treasury might not have a handle on public finances. Well, of course, yes. Let's face it, if Rachel Reeves came into power saying there's this £22 billion black hole, which then went to, what was it, 50, then 30, and now back to 20, it seems, if anything, it's like, oh, pick a number and then that's the black hole, doesn't it? One senior Labour MP didn't hold back, though, calling it a complete and utter shambles. And yes, that could be Labour's description, along with any policies they come out, surely. And remember, just last week, Miss Reeves was at Downing Street, interrupting our breakfast, basically saying to everyone that we all have to do our bit for tax rises. But then Deputy Leader Lucy Powell chipped in a bit, saying trust in politics is key, as whispers of a tax rise grew even louder. And Labour MP Catherine West warned that breaking the tax pledge could be as damaging as when Lib Dems broke their promise on tuition fees, which, yes, obviously they do keep getting reminded about. And unfortunately, when the news the tax plan was off the table, chaos apparently erupted a bit because bank stocks took a hit, and experts are worried that smaller tax hikes might not have been taken seriously by the markets. And now Miss Reeves is expected to freeze income tax thresholds until the end of the decade to rake in about £8 billion. This seems to be, doesn't it, their massive backup. Oh, well, we don't know what to do. Oh, we'll just freeze the thresholds for another few years. These thresholds need to be unfrozen as soon as possible. We need to have the money back in our pockets. At the end of the day, since these thresholds have been frozen, a lot of people who unfortunately have been brought into even paying tax when they wouldn't have otherwise had to. And the more inflation rises, the more it's important we have more money in our pockets. And by raising the tax thresholds and getting rid of this nasty fiscal drag is the way to do that, in my opinion, or at least one of the ways, eh? But it just makes me wonder what they'll do next. Perhaps not actually freezing them, but worse, maybe even lowering them. Although at the moment, apparently that won't be happening, because can you imagine that if they did, eh? But she is planning to crack down on salary sacrifice benefits and scrap the temporary 5p fuel duty cut and introduce a new tax, of course, as we've heard, on electric vehicles, a 3p per mile tax, which, if anything, is the worst thing they could do, because whilst 3p per mile doesn't sound like a lot, it is the thin end of the wedge, and it will get bigger and bigger and bigger, more than likely, as time goes on, and maybe spread not just to EVs, but also petrol and diesel cars as well. And that, what I think, is a very bad idea. Also, how it can actually be policed. It's just absolutely crazy, and surely goes against trying to make people buy EVs in the first place, doesn't it? Because why would anyone buy one if they thought we're going to get taxed potentially more than what we'd be paying in electric to get to places, eh? But admittedly, I could be wrong. Anyway, what do you reckon about this? Let me know down in the comments.